replacement of a culvert on Pleasure Road. As I understand it, between the resolution and the exhibit provided, this would be a shared agreement for project costs between the city and Manheim Township. I would welcome any further comment from Director Campbell as it relates to this particular resolution.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. This is a site which is on Pleasure Road near Deer Ford, which is just on the other side of the Burl property towards the far end of the Walnut Street extension. It's on the line between the Manheim Township and the city of Lancaster, and it is shared infrastructure. The culvert needs to be replaced, not only for accommodating increased need in both the township and the city in that particular location, but because it is some aging infrastructure as well. We have struck a deal, if you will, for it to be a perfectly split in the middle. In fact, what had anticipated to be a little bit more than $500,000 is really at the highest around $410,000, and plus $25,000 per each municipality for design and permitting fees. So the total itself will be no more than about the total for the city of Lancaster would be no more than $230,000 for this work. And it's the kind of thing where we need to do it. It's on the municipal boundary. There's a number of situations like this around the perimeter of the city, and it's hopefully a pro forma matter.
And then I believe I read in the exhibit that the timeline for construction should be 2024.
Yes, that is correct.
I don't have any further questions. Does anybody from the committee have any further questions for Director Campbell? No. Council as a whole, any questions?
Councilor Walsh.
Please.
Director Campbell, thank you for your presentation on this. Just in general, intermunicipal agreements, how long do they take to come together? And do you find the process to be easy working with our municipal partners on these matters?
Generally speaking, I find it relatively easy to work with these partners. With Manheim Township, it usually is difficult, but we have very good guidelines for this kind of agreement. So this was very, very simple, very, very straightforward. What made it even easier is that both parties will be doing self-performance, which also kept the cost down for both sides.
That's good news. Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to move Resolution 67, 2023 to full council on October 10th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. We now move into our Community Planning Committee. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning has several items on its agenda this evening. First of them being Administration Resolution 68, amending the sewage facility plan to include Stadium Row Phase 2 project. For this, I'm going to refer to Douglas to give us more detail on that.
Good evening, councilors and mayor. So this is a sewer planning module for the project known as Stadium Row 2. For those of you who are familiar with that, that was the first new multifamily building that we had in many decades in the city, built adjacent to the stadium by Ben Lesher. And his development company is proposing a second phase to that project. If you're familiar with the building, it's set back from Prince Street. And so the front lot, I believe it used to be occupied by Wellspan previously. That building is proposed for demolition and new construction of a 5-story structure that would operate with the existing Stadium Row project. So that would be 95 housing units there, and for a combination of 200 multifamily units on site when everything is all said and done, the existing plus the new. So this has been reviewed by our our sewer engineers, and there's capacity in the system to provide for the project, so it is recommended for approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Douglas. Are there any questions from the committee? Council as a whole?
If I may, Councilor Craig, thank you, Douglas. Do you have any idea of the timeline of when this project would start, if approved, and when they would have the new units ready?
Thank you, Councilor. I think it's a good question. Things are a little uncertain right now with interest rates and materials, et cetera. So last time I spoke with Mr. Lesher, he wasn't able to say exactly when it would start. However, this project has already gained zoning approvals and traffic commission approval, and it is currently under land development review right now. So I do expect probably before the end of the year that this plan would be approved and would be able to apply for building permits if the developer were ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Craig?
Go ahead.
Douglas, just as a reminder, the 95 new proposed units, none of them are marked for affordable, correct? These are all market rate?
That's correct. These are market rate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 10th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item on our agenda, well, the next several items on our agenda will be for applications for local shares. Right now, I'm going to ask that Tina Campbell come forward and give us like a brief overview of what we're looking at and the city's role in what we're doing.
Sure, yeah. Good evening. This is a statewide grant program. It's called the Local Shares Account Grant Program. It's actually through state gaming funds, so that's how the funds come through the state. And this is the second year of the statewide program. So specific counties have been eligible for this in the past, but Lancaster County was not until the statewide program began. So this is a program that you can get grant funding up to $1 million. It doesn't require a match, and it can be used for nonprofit organizations or for municipalities. General usage is around just community development, so really kind of making the community a better place. And we, as the city, serve as the grantee, and then the nonprofits would serve as sub-grantees for the grant. So last year we applied for, 4 different nonprofits applied for the grant funding. All 4 received some sort of their application, not the full amount for a couple, but all of them received some. So we're excited to have some of these applications again this year.
Thank you for your overview. Are there questions from the committee?
If I may, Councilor Craig. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. And just for clarification, we're not approving tonight any specific amounts, but only applications for the funds that are available?
So we have to do resolutions for the grant applications. So the grant applications will be submitted based on the amounts that you'll hear from the organizations tonight, but that's what, you're not necessarily approving the amounts, you're just proving that we're applying for those amounts.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all, Councilor Craig.
Councilor Craig, thank you. Thank you, Director Campbell. So would these applications would be approved by the state, correct, and not by council?
Correct, yeah. It's a program through DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Craig. Ms. Campbell, thank you for giving us an overview. We had significantly fewer applicants last year. Can you tell me, is there any limit to the number of sub-grantees or any of these applications that we can make resolutions for?
There's not a limit, no. I mean, there is limited funding, and it's
Sure.
a competitive grant process, but that's for the state to decide.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Hi, Director Campbell. It's nice to say those 2 words together. Is this all of them?
No, thank you for that question. So I believe this is 8 of them, if I'm counting correctly, and I think we have 16 total, so you'll see some in November as well. Part of the reason that we're starting them now is we were trying to spread them out a little bit.
Counselor Craig?
Go ahead.
How much total is available throughout the state?
I'm actually not sure about that, but we can find that out.
Oh, that would be great. Are there any questions from the public?
I just wondered who Susie Hoover, 200 block of East King. I just wondered who the 4 applicants who received funding last year, who were they?
Sure. Let me make sure I'm remembering them all. So South End Concerned Neighbors, Tenfold, SACA, and blanking on the last one.
Was it
The Y.
YW?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, the YWCA.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tim.
Tim Stuhlder, One United Lancaster. Could you just explain the timeline for state review, grant award, grant receipt, and so forth?
So the grant applications are due November 30th. We don't exactly know the timeline for the state. This is funded through the Commonwealth Financing Authority, and they meet quarterly. So at the earliest, it would be on their January agenda, but I would doubt that it would be that early. It will likely be in the spring or later. It took a year this past time to get the approvals, so.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the public? Okay. So what we will do is ask at this time that each one of the applicants come up and give us a brief 3-minute description of what your project is. And first, we're going to do Stadium Row, I'm sorry, the EMS, Lancaster EMS.
Thank you. I'm Joanne Weidman. I'm the CFO at Lancaster EMS. I want to thank you for considering us. So as many of you know, in August, we purchased property in Fairview Avenue, and we'll be relocating our current fleet maintenance garage from Columbia Avenue. This new space will be significantly larger, allowing us to do more work on our vehicles. Lancaster EMS currently maintains a fleet of 58 vehicles. 21 of those are ambulances, 4 are squads that respond with ambulances to 911 calls. I don't know if any of you know the current state of availability of emergency vehicles, but if you Google ambulance chassis shortage, you'll see that across the nation we're in a crisis. Typically, we purchase 2 a year. And the last 2 we got were 2021. We've been on the list for 4. We were told 2023, 2024, and now 2025. That, along with the current auto workers strike, is not helping with parts and other things needed, so we could be looking at significantly longer delays of time. Our in-house mechanics work hard to ensure that our ambulances stay on the road. They can do basically all maintenance, preventative maintenance, including, oil change. They can change out engines, transmissions, all that. Things they can't do currently are alignments and body work. We're not going to get into the body work end of it, but we would like to be able to do our alignments on our vehicles. Any time that we can bring something in-house, can save time on how long an ambulance is out of service. So they'd like a 3rd lift. We currently have 2 we're going to bring over to the new shop. They want a 3rd lift because there are times where they might have 2 vehicles up on the lifts for engine or transmission, and a vehicle might come in for a quick, easy oil change or tire or something. so they could use that third lift. We're also requesting this grant funding for an alignment lift to be able to do the front end alignments on tires and the alignment machine. Currently, for vehicles of this size, it's very hard to find somebody that can do them, and our current outsourced garage is looking to retire. So we're also looking to purchase an upgraded air conditioner machine to handle the refrigerant that is found in newer vehicles. So bottom line, we're looking for $106,730 to purchase some equipment that we need for our garage with the local shares account grant funding. It's to ensure that, our vehicles are safely maintained, to transport patients in need when they call for 911 for assistance. We're trying to keep this aging fleet of vehicles maintained at reasonable costs in-house. And, it would reduce the number of times that an ambulance is out of service. An ambulance is out of service, longer response times, and increased negative outcomes for patients. So, and just a little side note, we do almost 50% of our runs responds to requests for service in the city, so.
Thank you.
And our new project will be in the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council for the applicant? Any questions from the public for the applicant? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Then the next applicant is Administration Resolution number 70. Oh, before I go any further, Mr. Harris, when we get to the end, or should I do these to move to council separately?
It would be easier to do them individually.
To do it okay, all right. So, Administration Resolution number 69, authorizing an application for local shares account program for Lancaster EMS. I'll make a motion to move that to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to Administration Resolution number 70, 2023, authorizing application for local shares program by Patients Are Waiting. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Sharice Hamblin. I'm the founder of Patients Are Waiting. We are a Lancaster-based nonprofit organization. Our mission is to eliminate health disparities by increasing diversity in medicine. We have 3 areas of focus: increasing the pipeline of minority clinicians, making that pipeline less leaky, and supporting minority clinicians in practice. For those of you who don't know, the percentage of physicians in this country that are Black has been 5% for over 40 years, that are Latino is 6%. It's not lost on me that today is National Latino Physician Day. The lack of diversity in medicine is a result of racism that is pervasive through society, whether it is systemic, interpersonal, systems-based, etc. Our educational system is broken, and it takes almost 10 years to make a doctor. For the last 12 years, I've been working in this community with local schools, like my alma mater, Franklin and Marshall, to help students with their throughput. This past weekend, we had over 150 students and educators working at that same issue at our conference themed The Black Doctor Factory. That is the physical manifestation of this dream and idea to make Lancaster a hub and a place where we are tapping or leveraging the untapped human resources of our students and learners and young people here who want to serve their community and increase and improve the health of their friends and neighbors and colleagues. And so we work to help students who are interested in health careers, working with them to close education and information gaps. And we have our physical location, our office space at Southern Market, where we have 1,600 feet, 6-room suite. And that is where we will do our in-person work. And so I'm requesting funding to support this infrastructure, the physical items that are necessary in the office, equipment and staffing to work with students for our programs that currently exist and have been running. Over 100 high school students have gone through our Pipeline Dreams program, and some of them are now in college and reference back to Lancaster as a place where they were invested in to be able to come back and serve.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Are there any questions from the public?
Tim Stilder, One United Lancaster, just wondering if we could hear a grant amount and some more specifics about what it would be used for.
The grant amount, it said the maximum was $1 million, and so that's what we asked for. We recently applied for an NIH grant. We apply for grants every day, including today, applying for a doula grant from the state, and so we're constantly applying. The specific things are office furniture, so that's a portion of it, our staffing, realizing that we have 2.5 FTE in order to actually provide one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat that students need to improve their education. It will require, we have some proposals or explanations from local math teachers who are leading the Health Careers Program of what is needed to build out that math program. Basically, if you don't have AP math in high school, you're kind of set up for failure in college, wherever you go, as far as a pre-med curriculum and going out there. And it's not just for people to become doctors, but dentists, dental hygienists, et cetera. And so staffing, the actual rental of our space, a long-term rent agreement, and then the furniture and the build-out in that space and equipment.
Councilor Craig.
Go ahead.
Doctor, it was great seeing you again. It's been a while. In regards to the program, would that also include the medulla classes that you usually, teach around the community?
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Councilwoman Diaz. The doula program has been in existence in the last 3 years, and it's open to all Lancaster County families. And so, growing on that is to offer community classes at Southern Market. And so the doulas do like a kind of prenatal education to the families, but then in addition, breastfeeding support. And so you basically take the learner, whether that is someone who has their new family or someone who is in college or high school who wants to serve. So it kind of integrates everything because the student is a central portion of what we do. So it wouldn't provide doula services, but that education of the doula training and the community classes, et cetera. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Administration Resolution 71, authorizing application for local shares grant program by Longs Park Amphitheater Foundation. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, councilors and mayor, and those of you online. My name is Tom Ellis, and I'm the president of the Longs Park Amphitheater Foundation. And our mission is to curate the arts at the Longs Park Amphitheater Foundation for the general public, enriching the quality of life for Lancaster. I'm here on behalf of 12 volunteer board members, over 200 volunteers annually that help maintain and help curate as well as service the community at the Longs Park Amphitheater in Longs Park. And also to let you know that at the each event, we host anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 people from Lancaster, then 25,000 at the Patriot concert. That together is somewhere between 73 and 97,000 folks that come out to the park to be at the amphitheater to see the curated art. The reason I mention that, I don't know how many of you have been to the Summer Music Series more than once this summer, I hope. I don't know about those in the audience, but if you haven't, we invite you to also come out and be part of the Bucket Brigade. It is a free event at all 13 of the concerts, and we call it the Bucket Brigade because we out and ask for donations. It is a fully sponsored event, so it can be free to the city. And because of that, if you can come out and be a part of the Bucket Brigade, you're going to be witness to those that attend. This in attendance is children elderly, handicap. It is truly the fabric of the city of Lancaster. It is the underserved. It is those who have no other option to see the type of curated art that happens at an event like this. And when they do come, it is memorable and it's generational. And so it is an event like no other in the city, and we invite you to come out. Our obligation to serve this community is because of the people that it serves. A lot of people will think that because of its geographic location, that it really doesn't serve the city of Lancaster, and that's simply not true. It serves more of the city of Lancaster and the inner city than any other public attendance that we have. So with that, our interest in this proposal is to replace the roof. That is the primary objection. We've been serving 13 concerts per summer for the last 62 years. We have made over $40,000 in repairs to the roof and the electrical systems, and that was as of this year. And at the end of the day, without the roof, we cannot actually apply all the other things that are on the proposal, because the infrastructure includes painting underneath the infrastructure. It includes lighting that is antiquated and cannot be replaced. It doesn't allow us to move to LED. It includes the stage itself that is showing a little long in the tooth from 62 years of use, over 13 concerts each year. And it's showing cracks and it needs some support. Also, with regard to the infrastructure, is the facilities themselves, where we welcome the artists and the musicians inside the space. It's been well maintained, and it is now needing for repair and some upgrades. The landscaping has been updated over the several years, but it too is getting a little worn. And I might also mention that at the end of the day, there is a tarmac behind the building which the public isn't always aware of until they have to use the facilities. And because of that, it is restricted to handicap and mobility for those in wheelchairs because it's a gravel tarmac. And so we're recommending that that be upgraded to some type of asphalt or concrete facility. With all of that said, I do want to thank the mayor. I want to thank the Park Commission, which meets quarterly. Deb Martin-Burkowski, who is also part of the commission, and her team, who we've worked together throughout the years in order to help keep these concerts going for the general public, and at the same time provide purpose for the over 200 volunteers each year that come out and help support this annual event. I might add that we also invite a minimum of 2 to 3 other foundations that service the community at each of our events. That there is no charge to these foundations. It provides them with a platform in order to share what their services are to our community. We allow them to get up on stage. We allow them to have a presence physically at the space. And we also allow them to hand out or talk to anyone who wants to come up and talk to them. So that's roughly 24 foundations that we host throughout the year, 2 to 3 each event, to share what is available to them that are underserved or underprivileged or have handicap facilities, and it services all demographics. So with that, that is our proposal. The amount with the roof begins at just at $670,000. The rest of it is a bit moot. If we can't repair or replace the roof because it is beyond maintenance, then the infrastructure, the stage, the electrical, and everything else would simply be irrelevant. So we are asking that we look at it as a whole, but we're also asking primarily for the consideration of the roof replacement.
Thank you. And the amount that you are applying for?
The total amount that we are applying for is $945,000 in total. Yes, sir. That is the total project cost.
Are there any questions from the committee? Any further questions from the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we move this resolution to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Administration Resolution Number 72, authorizing application for local shares program by Brightside Opportunity Center.
Good evening, Council and the Mayor. I am Rolanda McLeod, President and CEO at Brightside Opportunity Center. We provide opportunities dedicated to individual achievement and to strengthening the community through collaboration and programs that are both educational and inclusive. At Brightside, our journey this year and next year will be to transform our campus to be a better stewards of our natural resources. Last year, we installed a rain garden on our campus, rain barrels to reduce stormwater runoff, which helps save about 400 gallons of water going back into our rain garden. We planted 5 new trees to increase our tree canopy around the campus. We are now a certified Wildlife Federation for natural wildlife, and we replaced all of our non-native plants and bushes with native plants and bushes. So with that, we now have some additional challenges. Our parking lot is in need of desperate repair. So we figure it is time to replace or redo our parking lot and include some type of green aspects and green infrastructure. It will also increase the water quality, decrease storm runoff, increase groundwater supply, and reduce the urban heat island effect. Additionally, we also need a new roof. Our building is now 19 years old. In recent years, we've been replacing holes and sealing cracks more frequently. To reduce the reliance on fossil fuels, once a new roof is installed, we plan to explore possibilities of installing solar panels on our gym roof and sell the excess energy back to the grid, which will in turn decrease our electricity costs, and as electricity continues to be the highest operational cost for our facility. By implementing these changes and continuing to educate and engage the community, Brightside Opportunity Centers can make a significant impact on our community and a positive impact on our environment and reduce operational costs over time. So that is what we plan to do with this grant. The amount we are requesting is $650,000.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Questions from council as a whole? Any questions from the public?
Of course, Tim has questions.
Tim Stoolger, 1 United Lancaster, is that the total project cost?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Administration Resolution Number 73, authorizing application for a local shares account program by Bethel African American Historical Services.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Kelly O'Connor on behalf of Bethel African Historical Services. It's not Bethel African American, it's Bethel African Historical Services. I have with me several members of Bethel's leadership, Kevin Brownlee, Chair of the Steward Board, Barrington Evans of the Steward Board, and Sue Clark of the Steward Board. And Reverend Edward Bailey, the President, unfortunately could not make it here tonight. But I want to thank you all for inviting us here to discuss tonight's statewide local share account grant program application. Bethel African Historical Services is a 501c3 nonprofit organization created by Bethel AME Church to administer services at the Reverend Harvey H.B. and Kai Sparkman III Cultural Center at 512 East Strawberry Street in Lancaster City. Services include the Cunningham Jackson Senior Community Center, tutoring and literacy programs, the Jean Polite and Mary Boots Food Bank, Healing Hands Ministry, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, men's groups, women's groups, parents groups, grandparents groups. Lots and lots of services at this facility. On a weekly basis, Bethel serves more than 600 individuals twice weekly at its food bank. It's senior center, it's weekly groups, it's Healing Hands program, they're equally active. This is a very active building. It's a well-used community center. Bethel is seeking $965,000 in statewide local share account grant funding to help advance a rehabilitation project at the cultural center. Specifically, the grant application seeks funding for a new HVAC system and replacement of all 93 windows. $965,000 is the total cost of the project. So these improvements will ensure temperature control and airflow, which is essential to the healthy and safe provision of services at the cultural center. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic really highlighted the need for a new HVAC system and more functional windows. The project's also going to help preserve the cultural center building, which is, you know, a treasured neighborhood landmark in Churchtown. It was constructed in 1895. It's the former Reigert Elementary School. It was designed by Lancaster County architect C. Emlyn Urban. Before that, it was an African public school established in 1850. You know, there's a tremendous amount of history here at this site. So on behalf of Bethel, I'm requesting that the City of Lancaster serve as Bethel's applicant and grantee for this application. You know, Bethel's prepared to draft the application. We're familiar with the requirements. And we just really, you know, ask for your support. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions from council as a whole? No? Tim is good? Thank you so much. I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 10th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is going to be authorizing an application for local shares account to Chestnut Housing.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening, councilors and Mayor Sirachi. Thanks for your time this evening and for the many ways you are supporting affordable housing initiatives in our community. We're thrilled to be having your support in a number of ways. You've heard about our development of Millburn Apartments on Rockland Street a number of times in the last year or so. So this evening, my presentation is going to focus specifically on why we're requesting LSA funding for 2024. As you know, Millburn Apartments is an 8-unit development of 2 properties that were severely damaged by fire 3 years ago. Once completed, Chestnut Housing will operate all 8 apartments as affordable housing focused on families and individuals experiencing homelessness. At the time that we purchased the properties from the Redevelopment Authority last fall, the projected project budget was about $1.94 million. And as you know, we received City of Lancaster ARPA funding, which we're super grateful for, and some other commitments totaling about $1.65 million to date. So we have been feeling good about where we're at with our fundraising. However, as we have continued through the pre-development process over the last year and gotten a better handle on the construction costs there, we now have an updated budget of $2.27 million. About an increase of $300,000 from the original budget. The increase is due to some increase in construction estimates, especially attending to prevailing wage requirements that are connected with our ARPA funding, as well as some other things we've worked into the budget around things like a long-term operating reserve to ensure that the housing is preserved as affordable housing for years to come. So we're hard at work to close that gap. We have a gap, if you've been following the math, of about $600,000 for this project. We're close to getting ready for construction. Probably in November or December this year, construction will begin. We're in fact in front of the zoning hearing board this week to give testimony for this project and seek approvals there. So we're hard at work to raise that final $600,000. We anticipate a small portion of that will be financed through a private loan, but we are pounding the pavement to raise about $500,000 to close out the funding gap there. So that's our request of council's support this evening for LSA funding, is for $500,000 in support of Millburn Apartments. Recognizing the timeline of funding for this program, this is, to be clear, kind of our last resort application. We have some other things we're pursuing in the meantime and feel hopeful about, but this also feels like a welcome and could be a vital part of the funding package for this housing development. So we thank you for your ongoing partnership on this project. We are really excited to get to work actually building apartments there in the next month or two. And we know this wouldn't be possible without your support. So we're super grateful and willing to answer questions about our anticipated application.
Questions from the committee? Any questions from council?
Councilor Craig, if I may, thank you for the presentation. Do we foresee any increases in the total amount of the project with construction or anything?
Yeah, thanks.
Further than the 2.27 million?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question, and I don't know definitively. We are still, we will be putting out bids for the construction contract for this imminently, and then finalizing a construction contract. So those numbers may change a little bit, but the most recent budget is based on a pretty solid estimate. So I anticipate that being pretty close to where we land, and would have no reason to be seeking additional kind of major grants of this size.
Thank you.
Any further questions from council? Are there any questions from the public?
The question is more for my education. So you talked about 8 units of affordable housing, and I know earlier in the evening we were hearing about market rate. And can you just mention or paint a picture of what's the difference between affordable and market rate?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So these apartments will all be income restricted for households earning 50% or below of area median income for our community in Lancaster. Many of the households we serve, nearly all of our households are folks who have experienced homelessness. So they're often in the kind of very low income category, meaning they're more at like 20 or 30% of area median income. So the housing we provide is vital to that vulnerable population. That means in terms of market rate rents, our rents tend to be about 50 or 60% of what you would see for a market rate rent.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the public? Hearing none, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move Resolution 74 to full council on the 10th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is Resolution Number 75, authorizing application for LSA program by the Lancaster LGBTQ Coalition.
Thank you.
Hello.
I have a hard time with that too, so no problem.
It's a tongue twister.
It is. We're going to shorten it at some point. So hello, everyone. Thank you all for having us. I'm Kay Foley, Executive Director of Lancaster LGBTQ+ Coalition. Thank you for having us here on the beginning of LGBTQ+ History Month. We are proposing to ask for $800,000 to complete our renovations for the Loop, which we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary right down at 117 East Chestnut Street. We also just were awarded a design for our space and will be exhibited in Philly, so we're very excited about that. And we propose to do renovations for the upstairs location, which has been vacant for over 4 years now, 5,500 square feet of intergenerational communal housing. And ideally, we're looking at 15 units, shared units, supportive housing. And we have right now our clinic that's been expanded. We have a free drop-in HIV testing clinic twice a month. We have full-time therapist for one-on-one mental health therapy. Our supportive programming is still happening, and right now our hope is to have intergenerational communal housing on the top floor, a full-time clinic, and urban garden. And if you haven't been, I think most of you have, it is a gorgeous sanctuary for all to work toward beloved community. And I know you're probably going to ask Tim what the total, It's just over $1 million for the renovation from Heck Construction, gave us a bid for that. So that is $1,058,000. And then, ideally, I know there's a question, Tina had said that maybe this is really for building acquisition or people that own spaces. So if the funding needs to go toward building acquisition, we will apply for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the committee?
It is also our 4-year anniversary on November 12th, if you can remember coming to TELUS 4 years ago. So I just want to invite everyone November 12th at TELUS. Come on down.
Thank you. Any questions from the public?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hearing none, make motion to move Resolution 75 to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The last local shares applicant is Administration Resolution 76, South Ann Street Concerned Neighbors.
Darlene Bird with South End Concerned Neighbor, and I have Betty Jones and Carmela Johnson, who are also board members with me. We are applying for $550,000. Total cost is $1,300,000. We are looking at property on Franklin Street. I think the city has just recently given us an address as 602 Stevens Avenue. The property was given to South End Concerned Neighbors through Thaddeus Stevens College and Thaddeus Stevens Foundation. So we are looking for funds to build a building on the property. We would be building 2 3-bedroom apartments on the second floor, which would be 40 to 30% income. And we would put a pizza shop and a fresh food market on the bottom. In 2019, we surveyed a community, which was a big part of Thaddeus Stevens being able to get the property, who was putting affordable housings on the property. And it was a need. They don't have a fresh food market close enough that they could use and walk to. So it was a need in the community that we will be serving. We are on the federal budget, and we have a line item, providing that the federal budget passes for the rest of the money for the project. So that's why we're only asking for the $550,000.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions from the public?
Federal. Yes, federal.
I'll make a motion that we move resolution number 76 to full council on the 10th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last item on our agenda this evening is resolution number 79, adopting the City of Lancaster's 2023 comprehensive plan. And I believe Director Delph and Douglas Smith are going to give us they told me it was going to be a brief presentation.
Everybody did so well.
Yes, they did.
And just as they get the AV set up, if you are done with your portion of the meeting and you wish to step out, we won't be angry or disappointed at you. So you can certainly take a moment to do that, or you can stay, because this is also very exciting. Some people always wonder if they can leave.
Good evening, councilors, and Mayor Sirachi, members of the public. Councilor Craig, I do promise to be relatively brief.
Now he tells me. Thank you.
And actually, in all seriousness, that's a good segue just to set the stage for the presentation. tonight. Today is our council committee meeting, and we're really intending to tee up our presentation for October 24th. We have an official public hearing for the adoption of the city's comprehensive plan on October 24th, but we do want to take the opportunity tonight to provide some key pieces of information and really give a high-level overview. I know we've spoken about the comprehensive plan a number of times, but we want to make sure that we give it the time necessary. So, oops.
I think you turned it off.
So, nope, we're good. So the intent tonight is just to give an update of where we are in the process and to provide some high-level highlights from the plan as well. I know that we've talked about the historic nature of this document on a number of occasions. I took a look back at the date of the last comprehensive plan in 1993, and I believe that was adopted at the end of the year in December. So the month of October, we're nearly 30 years to the month since our last city comprehensive plan, and really excited to be at this point. Douglas will provide some more context about the milestones in this journey, but it's been a long road, really, since early 2020.
So first, I'll just make sure we're all on the same page and tell you briefly what a comprehensive plan is. So this is a long-term community vision document. It sets a vision for the next, really looking out 20 years for the city, and it's a collection of general policies for the city. Specifically, the document is intended to direct physical change and growth in the city. This is not a document for all of city's operations or for everything that happens in the city. This is really specifically about how we guide physical growth and development. And the comprehensive plan is intended to set the direction for other planning documents as well. So in this diagram, we have the comprehensive plan at the top and then a variety of documents that are coming out of that. So a parks plan, for instance. Chris mentioned that this is a historic moment. I like showing this image to look back and show you that we've only had 4 comprehensive plans in the last 100 years roughly. So in 2007, there was a multi-municipal plan, Growing Together. The distinction here is that this was for multiple municipalities, but the last time we had a city-focused comprehensive plan was in 1993, and prior to that, 1945 and 1929. The city has undertaken a very deliberate process over the last 4 years. And so here I have just a very approximate breakdown of what those phases have looked like. In 2020, we started the pre-planning for this project, and we began scoping the comprehensive plan and also seeking funding and securing funding to help accomplish it. In the summer of 2021, with Mayor's Neighborhood Month, we began phase 1, which was focused on values and priorities. A year later, we got a little bit more specific with the community, and we began to discuss land use and design. 2023, this year, we finally began the policy drafting and then the sharing of that, and here we are at the doorstep for adoption. It has been a thorough process, and the community has been engaged really at all points throughout this entire 4-year process. So there's a lot to say about engagement, and you have heard from us on that matter before, so I won't dive too deep into that. But these are some important numbers for us to take stock of. We've had over 14,000 interactions, which is, I think, perhaps the largest engagement effort that we've had so far in the city. We've had 157 events, both in person and virtual, around the city. Over 4,000 people directly engaged in person, more than 1,000 surveys, thousands of website visits, and we're not even sure actually how to count all the social media interactions, but I was told it's more than 7,000. And we've done all of that in 6 different languages at different points in the process: Arabic, English, Haitian Creole, Nepali, Spanish, and Swahili. The comp plan also sets up the city and the community for some important changes, and I've listed some of those here for you that are worth mentioning. First, the document is really advocating for compact and infill development throughout the city. It's also looking to expand our urban centers, which would be, imagine, the densest and most commercial-oriented, like the downtown. Mixed-use neighborhoods are being promoted throughout the city. There's a new vision for the Conestoga Riverfront. And also, we've identified with Lancaster City Alliance as well, new commercial hubs where we want to see new investments directed. And several of those are south of King Street and are in areas where we see tremendous potential and even existing investments already happening, like at the intersection of Duke and Chesapeake by Socket Development. There's also some major land use change areas. Some of those the Lancaster News has highlighted, like Park City Mall. The state sets out a very specific process for how we adopt the comprehensive plan. So I'll briefly review this with you. The Planning Commission first has to review the draft document at a public meeting and provide comments and or recommendation. So on August 16th, 2023, there was a unanimous recommendation by the Planning Commission to adopt the plan. So that recommendation is to you, City Council. There's then a formal review by the county, the school district of Lancaster, and the adjacent municipalities. There's a 45-day time limit, and notifications were sent at the end of the end of August, and that timeline ends October 14th. Comments will be shared with City Council during the public hearing process coming up. So then for City Council action, we are required to hold one public meeting. That is today, and it is also the 24th if the resolution moves forward. There's also a requirement for one public hearing where a court reporter would be present to create a legal record of the presentation and comments. So that's proposed to happen at the October 24th meeting prior to council consideration. Finally, just in terms of the mechanism, the plan is adopted by council resolution, not by ordinance. And in terms of the plan's effectiveness, it goes into effect immediately upon council adoption. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Chris just to walk through some high-level highlights from the plan.
Thank you, Douglas. I think this image will probably be familiar to the councilors and members of the public. We talked about this at length at the May 24th public event. I thought it was important to show this image again because it captures the framework, a framework for the content, the policy content in the comprehensive plan. Just to go through this briefly, you can see here that we have a set of overarching guiding principles that really set the tone and set the approach for our planning process and for the desired outcomes for the comprehensive plan itself. Under those 3 guiding principles there of equity, sustainability, and economy, we decided to divide the information. While the information is interconnected, it was important that we came up with an organizing framework. We decided on a framework of 5 planning systems. You can see those 5 planning systems here. Strengthening neighborhoods and housing. Number 2, expanding economic opportunity. Number 3, connecting people and places. Number 4, growing greener. And number 5, building community and capacity. Under each of those planning systems, we have a set of subtopics that we call elements. One of the things that I really want to draw your attention to here is that each of these elements have a community development objective. The Municipal Planning Code requires that we have a set of community community development objectives, and that's where we've captured, it's actually 19 of them, and we'll get to that in a moment. Those 19 community development objectives are tied to the elements. Under each of the elements are a series of policies and actions. Douglas touched on this a little bit, but I did want to highlight again that we have three key maps within the comprehensive plan. We have the future land use map, which tends to be the centerpiece for most comprehensive plans throughout the country. The future land use map is the main tool that is guiding the physical growth and change in the city. It also establishes the guidance for land development ordinances in the city, in particular zoning, but it may have other impacts as well. The second map here is the economic development policy map. As Douglas pointed out, we have a series of corridors and hubs that we've identified in the city. We have taken great care to emphasize those commercial hubs and corridors, particularly south of King Street. The importance here is that we are making a policy statement about where we want to direct investment within the city. I have an example here that actually in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a small team within City Hall has been working on an economic development administration. This is a federal economic development administration grant for distressed areas in the Southeast. So we're taking the opportunity to put the comprehensive plan into action as soon as possible and seek funding to implement some of the policies and actions in the comp plan. Last but not least, the third map here is the Conestoga Riverfront Policy Map, and the intent with that map is to bring the new Conestoga Riverfront vision to life, to show that visually, and to direct where we expect additional infrastructure, improved infrastructure, and environmental protections as well along the river. Coming back to the community development objectives for just a moment, as I mentioned, there are 19 of those. I'm not going to go through all 19, but I just want to provide an example of what this looks like under each planning system. So for example, under planning system 1, strengthening neighborhoods and housing, the first element is about housing choice, and you can see here that the stated objective is to facilitate a diversity of housing types serving a range of household compositions and income levels. And then if you take a look at planning system 2, expanding economic opportunity, the first element there is about economic mobility within our city, and the objective is stated as support city residents in preparing for and securing good jobs that raise their standard of living. We have community development objectives under each of the 5 planning systems. I'd like to take a moment to speak about implementation and how important implementation is to the comprehensive plan. The community at large, so many residents, so many organizations have spent a tremendous amount of time to craft this document. We want to make sure that it does not sit on the shelf and that it is put into practice. There are a lot of big ideas in the comprehensive plan, and we're looking over a period of 20 years. So it's very important that we break that down into bite-sized pieces. Under the community development objectives and under the policies, we have almost 80 discrete actions that are recommended by the plan. These are projects or tasks that are intended to enact those policies that they fall under. It's important to note here that we tried to choose actions that we thought had the largest impact on bringing the vision to fruition. These are top priority items, but the list is not intended to be exhaustive. There are a lot of other things that the city is doing that may fulfill the policies, but we do have almost 80 that are stated in the plan specifically. Last but not least, the implementation chapter is the final chapter in the comprehensive plan, and a part of that chapter speaks to annual monitoring and work program efforts. And establishing those processes are really critical to make sure that we're moving things forward. And the intent there, and what is painted in that chapter, is that we're going to be tying the implementation work of the comprehensive plan to the annual budget and capital improvement plan process, and to make sure that we're tracking progress on an annual basis. That's not to say we're not going to face challenges and barriers to fulfill many of the things in the comprehensive plan, but we want to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable and that we're identifying those barriers should we run into them. Just rounding out presentation here, note again our next step, Planning Commission, public meeting and review. Douglas mentioned this already. This occurred on August 16th, 2023, the unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. We also have the formal review ongoing right now by the county, School District of Lancaster, and adjacent municipalities, and that 45-day time period will end on October 14th. And finally, that will bring us back to the official public hearing coming up on October 24th. I will pause there because I know we'll have more to say on the 24th and may receive, we'll have information from the school district, possibly from the adjacent municipalities, and I expect some commentary from the public as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, Councilor Craig. Thank you for the presentation, gentlemen. Just a quick clarification. What does a formal review from the county, school district, other municipalities look like, and what can we expect as far as feedback?
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. So it looks a little bit different for some of those entities. So I'll start with the school district. Really, the school district has the opportunity to provide comment formally in a written format that would be entered into the record during the public hearing. There's no vote or anything that's necessary from them. It's similar with the municipalities. They have the opportunity to provide comment, feedback, things they like or don't or support. And I have received comment from one municipality so far. I'm awaiting comment from others. The county is reviewing for consistency with the County Comprehensive Plan, Places 2040, and also Growing Together. They do the review for the multi-municipal plan that I mentioned earlier. So they will be actually providing a written recommendation to the Lancaster County Planning Commission, who would then provide a recommendation about its adoption or about its consistency with those two planning documents. If my memory serves me well, I believe on Wednesday we'll have a first draft from Lancaster County Planning Commission, and then the 10th, next Tuesday of next week, they'll have their formal meeting, and I will be there to provide a presentation prior to their recommendation. So then all of those together would be brought forth at the public hearing for your consideration.
I'm sorry, so council will see any written commentary or written comment from the partners?
Yes, if they submit, certainly, I can provide that in the packet that we give to councilors.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there further questions from committee? Questions from the public? Yeah. She beat you.
I beat Tim up here. I'm so excited. So once we adopt the plan, other plan is good. I like the plan. But once we adopt it, I would like us to, all of the citizen panels, some on the Redevelopment Authority and the Land Bank Authority, I think we somehow need to incorporate that plan into the training or information for the people who are on those panels. Because oftentimes we don't know. I know because I'm kind of here with you guys now, but prior to this I didn't know. So I don't know how you want to do that, but a suggestion to make sure that's done. I don't really have a question, just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alonda.
Thank you.
Yolanda, I love that idea. Done.
Tim Stuhlder, One United Lancaster. Two related questions. Were there any changes made to the plan following approval by the City Planning Commission? And is the PDF on One United Lancaster the latest and greatest?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stolzer. So the document that is on ourfuturelancaster.com is the latest document. I think you might have said One United, just wanted to clarify. Okay. And regarding the Planning Commission recommendation, thank you for the question. So the Planning Commission provided a unanimous recommendation for council to approve the plan, subject to city staff meeting with a subcommittee of planning commissioners and revisiting the future land use map to determine whether there were any changes that could be made to further the economic development efforts south of King Street. So there was no mandatory change noted. It was just that they wanted to make sure city staff was doing their due diligence to review, in particular, the boundary of the urban centers, the sort of downtown core area. So after additional analysis and further review, a portion of that district was extended further south from King Street to include some redevelopment opportunity. That was then presented back to the Planning Commission at the following meeting and was supported by the Commission. We met with 3 councilors to do that. That was Amos Stoltzfus, Maxine Cook, and third one was. Mr. Weeks. All of those are representatives who are, well, 2 of them who are directly south of King Street, the other who lives technically south of King Street, but in Conestoga Heights area. So it was good to involve those commissioners who represent those areas of the city. And that recommendation was in full agreement with the subcommittee. Everyone was very supportive of those boundary changes. So that is now reflected in the latest document on ourfuturelancaster.com.
Thank you, Douglas.
Council.
Did you have a question?
And I'll just quickly note, if there are additional, if there's additional interest in that particular process, we can explain more of that at the October 24th, when I also present to you the Planning Commission recommendation for approval too.
Hello, I'm Christine Kennedy. I live in the Hager Building at 10 North Market Street in Lancaster, PA. As a resident, an urban planner, and a consultant to the Age-Friendly Lancaster City program, I personally and professionally am proud of the people and the process that created this draft comprehensive plan. I agree with David Rouse, who is a consultant to our comprehensive plan and the former director of research for the American Planning Association, when he said Lancaster City is poised to become a national role model for smaller cities to include age-friendly best practices in their comprehensive plans. Age-friendly Lancaster City is elevating the work done in the comprehensive plan in its housing element next week at our 4th annual Age-Friendly Lancaster City Conference. The summit, it will be held on October 12th at the Holiday Inn. Mayor Sirachi will be giving a welcome to over 100 resident and community benefit organizations and developers that have already registered for the summit. It's free to attend and a free lunch. I have for each of you a little flyer that has a QR code that you're welcome to register. The theme of the conference this year is a showcase of age-friendly housing options. And age-friendly begins when you're born, when you stroll, or when you roll. And we have 12 different housing options that are going to have expert presentations, ranging from home sharing to the new apartment living coming into Lancaster, intergenerational community living, all the way up to luxury living by Willow Valley. So we hope that some of you will come and at least know that this is happening in our wonderful city. Thank you for guiding the work that led to our comprehensive plan, and I invite you to come to the summit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Darlene Bird. Couple questions, and I know, Doug, you know, because I asked you the whole way through the process since 2020. But for the record, out of the 14,000 responses we got, how many of them were city residents?
Thank you, Ms. Bird. That is a difficult number to provide specifically, and the reason is we had a lot of organic interaction where we showed up at community events, most of which were in the southwest and southeast of the city. And anyone who approached our table to learn about the comprehensive plan was provided information and provided a survey. In some cases, they were asked where they lived. When we conducted electronic surveys, we did ask from what quadrant they were from or whether they lived outside the city. So this is a map of events that Mr. Dels just pulled up for us. So I can try to provide some additional information when I come back to try to get at that question, but I will just warn you that it is probably very impartial information. But I know since we engaged in so many local neighborhood-based events that I can assure you and other members of the public that we spoke to many, many residents throughout the process at ice cream trucks and at other, local events and Brightside Baptist included.
Day, yes. The other question I had was about the mixed-use neighborhoods, and I know I actually sat on the committee when we were talking about that. Now, how does that affect the southeast area, and especially all the construction and things that are going on Chesapeake Street now? Will that be affected to be turned into mixed use? Did it really affect the southeast where we have this economic development that's going on now, like South End's, property?
Sure. So there are a couple layers to that. South Duke in particular is one of the corridors that you saw on our economic development map, and those corridors are slated to tend to have more of a mix of uses and a little bit more commercial activity, where you might have some storefront where people can really walk up and experience, a more commercial area. So Duke and Chesapeake in particular is actually one of the commercial hubs, and it's on a commercial corridor. So that area is envisioned for additional commercial investment, mixed-use commercial investment.
Okay.
Mixed-use neighborhoods, looking more broadly at the city and more residential areas, one of the things that we heard from many residents was that they enjoyed being able to walk to neighborhood-scale amenities like a cafe or a laundromat or a salon, something like that. So that was something that we have woven through the comprehensive plan with that feedback. Last comment I'll make is regarding the Southeast in particular. Director Delfs mentioned we were preparing a grant for Recompete for the Federal Economic Development Administration. And one of the things that we noticed was how few jobs and businesses are located in the southeast quadrant of the city.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we try to do in this plan is really try to promote investment and entrepreneurship in those areas. And in this grant in particular that we're pursuing, we're really looking to implement ideas from the comprehensive plan directly in that area of the city.
And I was thinking about Chesapeake and Broad Street particularly. Did that increase mixed use? Across from Thaddeus Stevens, the Griner Building, and the Senator putting down there, and the things that are happening, the housing and things that are going there. Has that changed in the comprehensive plan, knowing that these projects are coming forth, or no?
So have we changed things in the plan? Are we reflecting?
Mixed use, yeah.
Yeah.
Ms. Bird, just to clarify the question, I think what you're asking perhaps is whether the future land use category that we proposed in the map is a change from current zoning?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
I would have to look more specifically at the parcels, but I think there are areas that are mixed use on our future land use map over there that currently may be either mixed use zoning or R3. So it depends a lot. We'd have to pull out a map and kind of look more specifically.
And then my other question would be, have you included any organizations or companies within your within your comprehensive plan? I know we talked about this because I know it helps for funding. So if there are organizations that are mentioned within the comprehensive plan when they're applying for state or federal funding, you know, since it's in the plan, it really helps and boosts up their applications.
In the implementation chapter, we do have an implementation or action table where we do indicate primary partners who we think would be the most likely organization to work with us on a given action. Although I do want to caveat that that is just an idea of who that primary organization would be. In most cases, if we're pursuing a grant, we would probably drill down another level or two to really understand who would be the best partner organization for that grant. But I will say generally, that is the intent in the plan, is that both the community engagement was steeped in the organizational stakeholders, and ultimately, I'm glad you asked the question, because often people think about a comprehensive plan as being the city's plan. It's not the city's plan. It is the community's plan. It's not the city government's plan alone. It is intended that the investments are happening not by city tax money alone. It's about leveraging resources across a variety of organizations. And I think when you can build a coalition, that makes grant applications a lot stronger. I think you're right.
So we didn't actually put the names of the organizations, but you could do that down the road as they come up. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I think that's where we get into more specifics around a project scope of work, for example, or a work program where you'd really get into those details. One of the names for a comprehensive plan in other places around the country is actually called the general plan, because you're working at such a high level to paint the picture of where you want to go that it is difficult at times to really get into all of those specifics. But I think you're right that that's the intent for the implementation.
Okay. And I have one other question about a lot of comments have been made recently about the bike paths and everything that's going on. Has those comments been addressed within the comprehensive plan to take residents' concerns, or, you know, where does that stand? And I know, like, during the comment period, they were brought up, but I didn't know if there was a change that was made or nothing was said or what.
The comprehensive plan does not respond to specific comments related to locations of bike infrastructure, specific locations, roadways or trails, for example. However, at a policy level, it does say that the city and the city community wants to continue investing in a range of modes, including active modes, walking, bicycling, et cetera. Public transportation also being a very important area for additional investment, but we don't go into specific corridors, specific roadways.
And then my final question would be, I know that the Red Rose Transit Authority is coming up with their comprehensive plan as far as transportation within the city. Has our comprehensive plan worked with them, or are they going to look at what we've done in our comprehensive plan as they make their decisions on bus routes and everything?
We have been in coordination with Red Rose Transit Authority during their process, and I have recommended multiple times that they use the comprehensive plan as a centerpiece document to guide their work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd. Are there any further questions from the public in regards to the comprehensive plan?
Yes, ma'am. My name's Kevin Brownlee. you showed a page there where you had the 1945 comprehensive plan and the 1938, whatever, and then the 1993 comprehensive plan. Do you build upon these past comprehensive plans when you got to this plan here, or you just tore everything up and started over again?
Sure. I'll have to be careful of what I say because the last chief planner is sitting behind me here, and she wrote that plan in '93.
Oh, you wrote it? Oh, okay.
She was a key author. I will say we definitely did not tear up the 2007 or the 93 plan. The 29 and the 45 plan certainly are interesting historical references, but they're a little bit dated in terms of what they propose. We certainly have noted some interesting similarities, but we actually did a review of the 1993 policy plan when we were rounding out our document, just to make sure that we hadn't forgotten anything important that we needed to include.
Now, another question pertaining to that page right there. What was the success out of the 1929 plan to the 1945 plan and to the 1993 plan and now to your plan? What, you know what I mean? There had to be some positives and negatives in order for you to get to 2023.
Sir, that is a deep question. It is a great question. I will, that could be a very long conversation, and I will try to keep it brief and say that not just the 1929 Lancaster plan, but if you look at early plans throughout the country, when you look at architects and planners who worked in that area, the physical design skills that they brought to the table were excellent. And that set the bones for a lot of the cities around the country. However, I would argue that some of the social policies or the lack of intent with respect to equity has also created a variety of major structural challenges for us. So that was part of our early work on the comprehensive plan too, is understanding that planners and architects have done some great harms to our cities over the years. So a much longer conversation, but maybe
that should be brought out too.
I agree.
Because we have a right to know what harm came out of this that affect us today.
Yeah, I think the most classic example that many people talk about in the field were the redlining policies in a variety of cities and counties around the country, where it made it nearly impossible for people of color to own a home.
Most definitely. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brownlee.
If I may just add one other thing to that comment, I'll just note that the comprehensive plan is bookended by two poetry pieces that were commissioned by local poets within Lancaster City. The opening poem is called Let the Rose Rise, and parts of that poem detail some of the harms of planning in the city of Lancaster, as well as many of the successes of past members of our community. The final poem in the document is called Our Future Lancaster, and is really a much more forward and looking and inspirational poem written by Vito Colon, also a member of the Southeast, a business owner there. And both of those poems are very insightful, and I would encourage everyone to go on to Our Future Lancaster and read them.
Thank you. Paula, you had something you wanted to say?
While you're making your way to the podium, Paula, I had two quick things. One was just to recognize you, Paula. It was very kind of you to come tonight, and we appreciate your years of service to the city. And the second is, Douglas, can you give us a quick recap of the grant of our funding partners that help support the comprehensive plan? Because we certainly could not have done this without private philanthropy.
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you. I'd be glad to. So the first partner that we had at the table was the High Foundation. They provided critical funding that won us matching grants from a national donor called Partners for Places through the Funders Network. After that, we also had generous funding from the Free Foundation, another local philanthropic organization. The next grant that we got was from the Department of Community and Economic Development at the state of Pennsylvania. And I'm trying to think if there was another one that I'm missing here. I think those were the core. Oh, the last one is actually CDBG. We had funding from the federal government through HUD to pay for the remainder of it. That said, there were many people who offered in-kind services throughout the process as well that made this all possible. Oh, I'll mention, sorry, the Floyd Institute of Public Policy and the Center for Sustained Engagement with Lancaster at Franklin and Marshall also provided critical funding for the deliberative forum.
Great. Thank you. Just a few comments. Paula Jackson. How do you use this thing? Okay, Paula Jackson, city resident, retired city planner after 48 years. I decided it was time. But I wanted to compliment Douglas and the team and all the involvement that went into this. In response to this gentleman, I'm glad you brought up your questions. Now, I wasn't born yet, but the 29 plan, there was a city planning commission at the time, but very few people were involved in that discussion. And the same with, that was an outside consultant, John Nolan. The 1945 plan was the Baker plan, was the Michael Baker Associates, again, a consultant that came to town, and it would be limited to the government officials that would be involved. But I have to say, under our female mayors, in 1993, the first female mayor of the city of Lancaster stressed that it be citizen participation. And the 1993 policy plan is really based on a lot of citizen input. Now, computers didn't exist at that time, and I'm writing things longhand to give to a secretary. That's what we had. There was no internet, no SurveyMonkey, no great graphics like this. We had photographs, and that was about it, or hand drawings. But what you could do with the computers today, we didn't have in those days. But we had a lot of neighborhood meetings, and Darlene Bird, I'm so glad she's here. We had 68 neighborhood meetings in a 4-month time where we went into people's living rooms, and each person that opened their house delivered, we made up the flyers in City Hall, and they delivered to their block, and the people came into their homes. And Darlene was gracious to let us use her living room on South Ann Street for our very first of the 68 neighborhood meetings. But there's a map somewhere in the file that shows blue dots. They were scattered all over the city, and there were 631 people combined in those 68 neighborhood meetings. And from that, we developed the top 10 negatives and positives. And the top 10 positive of the city, as I recall, was the neighborhood, the neighbors. People said they really got along with the neighbors. Also near the top was the historic character of the city, the walkability of the city, the trees. On the negative side, parking, trash, and gangs. That came up as one of the top 10. There were other negatives, but absentee landlords. So some of the same, and I showed this to Mayor Sirachi before I left. You look at the top 10 positives. This was in 1991, 92, when we had all the citizen participation. There isn't much that has changed. In the 1945 comprehensive plan, now I haven't read the whole thing, just excerpts from it, but they mention a problem of downtown Lancaster in 1945 was parking. So that continues to exist. But also, the 1945 plan, unfortunately, I believe, served as a basis for the urban renewal that we had, because it talked a lot about blighted neighborhoods, but it didn't have citizen input at the time. So a lot of citizen input in 93, the policies, recommendations are really based on what the people told us, and the same with the new plan. It's really based on many more people because you have the ability and the technology to do that. But I just want to compliment, and we didn't have climate change as an issue back in 93. I mean, the environmental concern was there, but we didn't have climate change. I was so happy to see the emphasis on that. And I'm really happy with the change in the Sunnyside approach that's being looked at right now. It's really important to consider that as an environmental center. So I compliment the staff. I think you're doing a great job and look forward to its adoption.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure.
Are there any further questions from the public?
Dr. Hamblin, again, from Patients Are Waiting. So I can recall a lot of the beginning things. My comment is really around the 3 circles that had, a small area of concentricity. And equity is the new black. Everyone's talking about it, and yes, it's wonderful, and it's like an ideal, but, there's the Lancaster Equity Report. And even when we talk about health, there are, with chronic disinvestment that we've seen in communities of color in particular, and then in our city, there is a huge economic inequity, there is a huge employment inequity, and these things are cut along racial lines because racism is at the center of them. And even if we have a great desire and a great intent today, it doesn't repair past harms. And so even when we're competing for resources and we have set priorities, I think it's important, and it would be really wonderful to see that there is some plan or some process that is packaged in this, that the intent to repair harms, repair some of the impacts of redlining, to repair some of the chronic disinvestment. Even when we look at SDOL as they have an opportunity to comment, but if there's not a requirement, and if it's not here is your specific input, and here is the knowledge that these things are going to affect the thousands of students who are educated through this school district of Lancaster, who are residents of Lancaster City. We're all sitting here. A man was killed 2 days ago in Lancaster, 5 blocks away from where my office is, where I left at midnight. The deaths to Black people in Lancaster County were 10 years younger than the deaths of others, and it's wonderful, 55 and over communities and all of that. If we're not living to 55, what difference does it make? And so even when you look at the people who gave comment out of 14,000 and all of this, if you're looking for comment from people who know that when they talk, nobody's listening anyway, those things may not be showing up. And so I'm interested to see the outcome. Obviously, so many hours and hours have gone into it. I attended one meeting and I said, you know what? I too sometimes don't feel like my voice is heard, and so I disengaged from some of the process, but I'm sure it's wonderful, and I hope that that equity circle, that we're really looking at it, and not just, if in that bubble of equity, the racial is silent, that would be wonderful.
I just want to say thank you very much for heartfelt comments. It's always difficult when we do a presentation like this to summarize years' worth of work. They do just appear as bubbles on the graphic. The guiding principles, there is more here in the text that I think would be worth reading if people are interested. I also wanted to note that we'll be speaking a little more on October 24th about some of the details related to the engagement, and one of the defining drivers of this plan was to ensure that we were speaking to populations in the city who often don't have a voice. And I think that's where the process of the comprehensive plan versus the document is so important. And we tried very sincerely to make it an equitable and model process. So I do hope we succeeded.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 10th.
Second.
Councilor Craig, if the request was to move that forward on the 24th to coincide with the...
On the 24th, my mistake.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Council President, that concludes community planning for this evening.
Excellent, thank you very much. Counselor Craig? And it looks like we're getting copies of the plan. I look forward to hearing more about this on the 24th and our public hearing. Thank you both.
Thank you. All right, counselors, we'll now move into the committee of the whole this evening. We have 2 items on that agenda. The first item is resolution number 77, recognizing LGBTQ+ History Month. That resolution celebrates, it's a nationally celebrated history month, recognizing the history and contributions of the LGBTQ community. That history is not often taught in school or even talked about in our community, and I believe when that happens, we lose that history. It's important to recognize that history here locally as well, so that it too is not lost. Also, during the month of October, October 11th is National Coming Out Day, and that's important to remember as well. This evening, Kay Foley has been so kind to stay. Kay, is there anything you would like to say in regards to this resolution to celebrate this month? Thank you for hanging in there.
Thanks. I actually thought I was coming back next time, but I'm
And
happy
that's
to
okay.
stay. No. I just want to say thank you. You all have been a huge part of our history as an organization. We've all been through a lot together, I think, over the past 2.5 years. And, quite frankly, right now it is imperative that we keep our culture and our history alive. Our elders who started the Pink Triangle Coalition here in Lancaster, they were the ones who were lucky enough to survive, right? Who saw their, friends and family members die by the tens, during in a week during the first pandemic that we faced here, right? So, and again, thank you all for all of your support and for honoring this and for going through some really difficult years and still being generative and focused on progress and change. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And we invite you to come back and bring other members of your organization and any others to celebrate. But in order to get there, we have to do this. So are there any council comments on the resolution? Any from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this forward to our October 10th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Med?
Aye.
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Mr. Glees?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker?
Aye. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the 10th. Our next item this evening is resolution number 78, authorizing a flag raising at City Hall to mark Black History Month. You are now familiar with these resolutions, councilors. The NAACP Lancaster branch has submitted a timely application that is within 120 days to the city requesting a flag be flown at City Hall. The date will be February 2nd, 2024, and a backup date for bad weather of February 5th. 2024. And as a reminder, to any organization wishing to sponsor a flag raising, you can submit a request, again, at least 120 days in advance, at visitlancastercity.com. Any council comments on the resolution for the flag raising? From the public? Mr. Bramley, good evening.
Good evening. Who sponsored the flag raising for Black History?
This is the NAACP Lancaster branch has submitted this request.
All right. No other comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments from the public on the resolution? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this resolution forward to our October 10th meeting.
Second.
With motion and a second. Mr. Harris, if you would.
Mr. Med?
Aye.
Mr. Royo?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
President Baker?
Aye. Thank you very much. That concludes the committee of the whole this evening. Mr. Harris, you've submitted your clerk's report in writing to the members of council. Is that right?
I did.
Thank you very much. Make sure that you review that, members of council. Now, having gotten to the end of our agenda, having no further items, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned. Nighttime reading.
I know, right?